The fog arrived before dawn, rolling in slow and deliberate, as though summoned by the forest itself. It crept between the towering pines and settled low along the narrow road, thick enough to smother sound and blur distance. Headlights cut through it only briefly before being swallowed whole. The world became muted, gray upon gray, where shapes existed more as suggestions than certainty. The forest had always been old, ancient. Its roots ran deep and twisted beneath the soil, tangled with stories no one remembered and crimes no one confessed. On mornings like this, it felt alive, watching, waiting. Nothing stirred. No birds broke the silence. No wind whispered through branches. Even the insects seemed to hold their breath. Then came the sound of feet pounding against wet asphalt. She burst from the fog like a frightened animal escaping a trap. Angel Sanchez ran with everything she had left. Her lungs burned with every breath, sharp and painful, each gasp scraping her throat raw. Cold air sliced into her chest as tears blurred her vision, but she didn't slow. She couldn't. Fear pushed her small body forward, overriding exhaustion, pain, and the voice in her head screaming that she couldn't go on. She was only 8 years old. Her pink sundress, once bright and soft, chosen carefully by her mother for a school picnic, hung in tatters. Mud streaked the fabric in dark, ugly smears, clinging to her skin. One strap had torn loose, slipping down her shoulder, and the hem was shredded where thorns and branches had clawed at it. She was barefoot. Her feet slapped against the road, slick with moisture, skin split open in places. Blood mixed with rainwater and dirt, leaving faint red stains behind her, brief, fragile evidence of her existence before the fog erased them. Angel stumbled. Her toe caught on a crack in the pavement, and she went down hard, her knees smashing against the road. Pain exploded through her leg, sharp and blinding. She cried out despite herself, a thin, broken sound that vanished into the mist. For a moment, she stayed there on her hands and knees, sobbing, her body shaking uncontrollably. Then she saw it again in her mind. The tree. The rope. Her father's face, swollen, bruised, his eyes fluttering weakly as he hung there, helpless. "They'll kill him," she whispered through her tears. The thought tore through her like lightning. Angel pushed herself up, ignoring the blood streaming down her shin, and ran again. She ran until her chest felt like it would tear apart, until her legs trembled violently beneath her, until the fog ahead began to change shape, solidifying into something dark and unnatural against the gray. 2 black SUVs stood across the road. They were large, glossy, impossibly clean compared to the mud and decay of the forest. Their engines idled softly, producing a low, steady rumble that vibrated through the ground. Chrome accents caught what little light filtered through the fog, gleaming faintly like the eyes of predators. Angel didn't know what they were. She didn't know who might be inside. All she knew was that they were people, and people could help. She screamed, "Help!" The word tore from her throat, high and piercing, cracking the silence like a gunshot. "Please! Someone help me!" Her voice echoed briefly, then vanished into the mist. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the driver's door of the first SUV opened. A man stepped out. He moved slowly, deliberately, as if time bent around him instead of the other way around. He was tall, taller than anyone Angel had ever seen up close, and broad-shouldered beneath a perfectly tailored black suit. There was no tie. The jacket hung open over a crisp black shirt, unwrinkled, immaculate. Dark ink covered his skin. Tattoos climbed from his collarbone up the side of his neck, disappearing beneath his hairline. Symbols, words, patterns, stories written in ink Angel didn't understand but instinctively feared. His hands bore more markings, bold lines etched into his knuckles and wrists. His hair was slicked back neatly, untouched by the damp air. His face was sharp and hard, carved by years that had taught him not to show weakness. His eyes, dark, cold, unreadable, looked like polished obsidian. Jacobo Ramon. Even standing still, he radiated authority. The kind that didn't come from uniforms or badges, but from reputation. From power taken and held by force. Angel didn't know his name. She only knew she had reached him. Her legs gave out. She collapsed onto her knees in front of him, mud splashing up onto his shoes. She didn't care. Her small hands reached out blindly, fingers shaking so hard she could barely move them. "They hung my dad on a tree," she sobbed, words tumbling out in a rush, tangled and desperate.
Please.
Please save him." Jacobo didn't move. He looked down at her, his expression unreadable, his face a mask honed by years of violence and betrayal. He didn't kneel. He didn't offer comfort. He studied her with the cold, practiced eye of a man who had learned the cost of misplaced trust. Behind him, the doors of the second SUV opened. 3 men stepped out in perfect synchronization. They wore dark suits like Jacobo, white shirts and black ties. Each moved with precision, their bodies tense and alert. Their eyes scanned the fog-shrouded forest, hands hovering near concealed weapons. Victor came forward slightly. He was built like a wall, thick arms straining the fabric of his jacket. A long scar ran across his cheek, pale against dark skin, a souvenir from a life that didn't forgive mistakes. "Boss," Victor began. Jacobo raised a single hand. Victor fell silent instantly. Angel lifted her face, tears streaking down dirt-smeared cheeks. Her brown eyes were red and swollen, but sharp with terror. She wasn't hysterical. She was broken. "They left him hanging," she whispered.
Please.
"He's still there." Jacobo's gaze dropped lower. Rope burns circled her wrists, raw, angry marks that spoke of restraints and struggle. Dirt caked beneath her fingernails, as if she'd clawed at something desperately. Her trembling wasn't exaggerated or performative. It came from deep inside, the kind that settled into bones and stayed. He'd seen liars. This child wasn't one. Something shifted in his chest. A memory, unwanted and unwelcome, rose to the surface.
A boy. A crowd.
A rope tightening around a man's neck. A plea no one answered. "Where?" Jacobo asked. His voice was low, controlled. Not kind, but not cruel either. Angel raised a shaking arm and pointed toward the forest, toward the fog that swallowed everything. "In there. Not far. I ran so fast." Her voice broke completely, and she folded forward, pressing her forehead to the cold pavement as sobs racked her tiny body. Jacobo exhaled slowly. This could be a trap, a setup, an ambush. He'd survived long enough by assuming the worst. But traps didn't usually come bleeding, barefoot, and 8 years old. He glanced at his men. No words were needed. Engines shut off one by one. Doors closed softly. Weapons were no longer hidden. Jacobo stepped forward and reached down, gripping Angel's elbow firmly, not gently, but securely, and pulled her upright. She swayed, nearly collapsing again. Before she could protest, he lifted her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Her body trembled violently against his chest, fragile and cold.
"Hold on," he said.
It was a command, not a comfort. Angel wrapped her arms around his neck instinctively, burying her face into his shoulder. Her tears soaked into his suit jacket, darkening the expensive fabric. Jacobo didn't react. His men fell into formation instantly. Victor moved ahead, scanning the terrain. Diego and Mateo flanked them, weapons drawn, eyes sharp. Jacobo carried the girl into the fog, the forest swallowing them whole as the road disappeared behind. The air grew colder as they moved deeper. Branches scraped against suits. Roots twisted beneath their feet. The path Angel indicated was barely a trail, more animal than human. Her heartbeat thundered against Jacobo's chest.
Fast.
Terrified, they moved silently. Then the forest opened. A clearing emerged suddenly, unnaturally barren, as if the trees themselves had recoiled. At its center stood a massive oak, its trunk thick and ancient, branches stretching outward like accusing fingers. And, hanging from one of them, Angel screamed. The sound ripped through the fog, raw and piercing. Jacobo's grip tightened. The man swayed gently, rope biting deep into his wrists. His body was limp, his head lolling to one side. Bruises marred his face and torso. Blood crusted along his temple and lips. Victor was already running. He pressed 2 fingers to the man's neck. For a moment there was nothing. Then, "He's alive," Victor said tightly. "Barely." Angel sobbed harder. Jacobo lowered her to the ground and turned her face away. "Don't look." She clung to his leg, shaking. "Check the perimeter," Jacobo ordered. His men moved instantly. The rope was cut. The body lowered. The man, Alexis Sanchez, hit the ground with a soft, sickening thud. Victor worked fast, assessing injuries, checking breath.
Pulse weak, he said. Shock.
Hypothermia. Rope trauma. He needs medical. "They'll come back," Angel whispered. "They said they would." Jacobo looked at the tree, at the rope, at the girl. "They won't," he said. And in that moment, something old and dark inside him shifted. The forest seemed to lean inward as they worked, the fog thickening as though it resented interference. The ancient oak creaked softly, its massive limbs swaying in a breeze that touched nothing else. The rope, still taut moments ago, now lay severed at Victor's feet like a dead snake. Alexis Sanchez lay on the ground unmoving. Victor knelt beside him, hands already methodical, efficient. He loosened the remaining bindings around Alexis' wrists, revealing deep grooves in the flesh where the rope had cut in. The skin there was swollen, purple and raw, some areas already numbing toward gray. "Easy," Victor muttered, though Alexis was barely conscious. Diego stripped off his suit jacket without hesitation and draped it over Alexis' chest to preserve what little warmth remained. Mateo scanned the clearing, weapon raised, eyes flicking from tree line to tree line. "They meant to make a statement," Mateo said quietly. "Not kill him outright." Jacobo said nothing. Angel stood frozen, clinging to his leg like a lifeline, her face buried against his thigh. She shook violently, small shoulders trembling as her sobs came in broken gasps. "They tied me up," she whispered suddenly, voice muffled. "I tried to scream. Mommy tried to fight them." Jacobo looked down at her. "They hurt her?" he asked. Angel shook her head quickly. "They tied her too. They said Daddy owed money. They said if anyone helped him, they'd kill us all." Victor glanced up sharply. "How long ago?" Jacobo asked. "I don't know," Angel said weakly. It was still dark. Jacobo's jaw tightened.
"Victor," he said.
"How long can he last?" Victor pressed 2 fingers to Alexis' neck again, watching the shallow rise and fall of his chest. "We're on borrowed time. He needs fluids, heat, monitoring."
"Now."
"No hospitals," Jacobo said instantly. Victor didn't argue. Hospitals meant paperwork. Cameras. Police. Questions. And questions killed people. Jacobo reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He stepped a few feet away, turning slightly so Angel wouldn't hear the urgency in his voice. "Medical team," he said when the line connected. "Man mid-40s. Rope trauma, hypothermia, severe beating. Discreet. 20 minutes." A pause.
"Yes."
Riverside's safe house. He ended the call and turned back. "Move," he ordered. Mateo and Diego lifted Alexis carefully, supporting his weight as Victor guided them through the trees. Angel tried to follow, panic flashing across her face. "No," she cried. "Daddy." Jacobo crouched in front of her, his large frame lowering to her level. He placed his hands firmly on her shoulders. "Listen to me," he said. His voice was calm, steady, unyielding. "They're helping your father. He's alive." Her lip trembled. "Promise?" Jacobo didn't promise lightly. "He will not die here," he said. She nodded, tears streaming silently. Jacobo lifted her again, carrying her as they moved through the forest toward the waiting SUVs. The fog parted reluctantly, closing behind them as if sealing away the clearing and its violence. The drive was silent. Angel sat curled against Jacobo in the back seat, wrapped in a blanket Victor had produced from nowhere. Her head rested against his chest, exhaustion finally overtaking terror. She sniffled occasionally, but no longer cried. Victor drove. Diego sat in the passenger seat, weapon resting against his thigh. Mateo followed behind in the second SUV. Alexis stretched across the back with 4 fluids already running from a portable kit. Jacobo stared out the window, his reflection faint in the glass. The girl's words echoed in his mind. They hung my dad on a tree. It wasn't the first time he'd heard something like that. When they reached the safe house, the gates opened without delay. Tall iron barriers slid apart silently, revealing a sprawling estate hidden behind high walls and dense landscaping. To outsiders, it looked like luxury. To Jacobo, it was a fortress. The medical team was already waiting. They moved fast, efficient shadows in dark clothing, wheeling Alexis into the private medical wing without asking a single question. Angel tried to follow, but Victor gently intercepted her. "They're taking care of him," he said softly, his usual roughness tempered by something unfamiliar. "You can see him soon." She nodded, clutching the blanket tighter. A woman appeared, house staff, and knelt in front of Angel with a warm towel and a glass of water. "You're safe here," the woman said gently. Angel didn't respond. Her eyes searched for Jacobo. He stood near the doorway, hands clasped behind his back, watching as Alexis disappeared into the medical wing. His face betrayed nothing, but his knuckles were white with tension. Victor approached him. "Boss," he said quietly. "Tracks near the clearing. At least 4 men. One set lighter, ran hard. One got away," Jacobo said. "Yes." Jacobo nodded once. "Find him." Victor smiled grimly. "Already started." Angel finally spoke again. "Mister?" Jacobo turned. "Will they come here?" she asked. "No," he said. "This place is secure." She hesitated, then reached out and hugged his leg suddenly, tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. Jacobo froze. The contact was unexpected, unwanted, and yet he didn't push her away. After a moment, he gently disengaged her and nodded toward Victor. "Stay with him. He'll protect you." Victor placed a hand over his heart. "With my life." Angel nodded and followed Victor down the hallway toward the medical wing. Jacobo remained where he was, alone. Alexis Sanchez woke briefly 2 hours later. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused, lips cracked and dry. "Angel," he murmured weakly. "She's here," Victor told him, standing nearby. "You're safe." Alexis tried to lift his head and failed. His breathing hitched, pain flashing across his battered face. "Where's Sophia?" he whispered. Victor stiffened slightly. Jacobo, watching through the glass, caught the name.
Sophia.
He turned away and pulled out his phone. "Run the name Alexis Sanchez," he said when the call connected. "Find his wife. Secure her. Bring her here." Sophia Sanchez had been sitting on the kitchen floor when they found her. Her wrists were bound, rope cutting into her skin just like Angel's. Her mouth was taped shut. Bruises bloomed along her arms and cheek, but her eyes burned with fury and fear. When Jacobo's men cut her free, she didn't cry. She demanded answers. "You're safe," Victor told her. "Your husband is alive. Your daughter is with him." Her knees gave out. They brought her to the safe house within the hour. The moment Sophia saw Angel, she ran. "My baby," she sobbed, dropping to her knees and pulling her daughter into her arms. "Oh God, my baby." Angel clung to her mother fiercely, crying into her shoulder. "Daddy's alive," she whispered. "He's alive." Sophia looked up, eyes red and blazing. "Where is he?" "In surgery," Victor said. "He'll recover." Sophia rushed to the medical wing and collapsed into a chair beside Alexis' bed, gripping his hand as tears streamed down her face. Jacobo watched from the doorway. Sophia was beautiful in a quiet, unpolished way. Dark curls framed her face, her eyes sharp and intelligent despite exhaustion. There was strength in her posture, even as she trembled. She looked like a woman who had survived too much already. Victor joined Jacobo. "Gambling debt," he said. $3,000. Jacobo scoffed. "For that they did this?" "Castellano's men." Jacobo's eyes hardened. Victor Castellano, he repeated. The name tasted bitter. Small operation, Victor continued, but vicious. Likes public punishment. Jacobo's jaw clenched. Not for long. That night, the safe house was quiet. Sophia sat by Alexis' bedside, refusing to leave. Angel slept curled up on a couch nearby, clutching Victor's discarded jacket like a shield. Jacobo stood alone in the study, staring at old maps spread across the desk, territories, names, debts. A knock interrupted him. Sophia stood in the doorway. "Mr. Ramon," she said softly. "Jacobo," he corrected. She hesitated, then stepped inside. "Thank you," she said. "For saving them." "It was necessary," he replied. "No," she said firmly. "It was mercy." The word hung between them. Jacobo studied her. "You're not afraid of me," he observed. "I should be," she said honestly. "But tonight, you're the reason my husband is alive." Their eyes held. Something shifted. Morning arrived quietly at the Riverside safe house, filtered through tall glass windows and heavy curtains that muted the outside world. Sunlight spilled across marble floors and brushed against walls adorned with art too expensive to notice anymore. The house breathed softly, guarded by cameras, steel, and men who slept lightly with one eye open. In the medical wing, machines hummed in a steady rhythm. Alexis Sanchez lay pale against white sheets, his breathing shallow but stronger than it had been the night before. For lines fed fluids into his veins, monitors tracking every fragile improvement. His face bore the map of what he'd endured. Dark bruises blooming along his jaw, a split lip stitched cleanly, swelling around one eye. Sophia hadn't moved from her chair. She sat with her back straight despite the exhaustion weighing on her shoulders, one hand clasped tightly around Alexis' fingers, as if letting go might steal him away again. Her other hand occasionally reached out to smooth his hair, a small, grounding gesture that spoke of long years spent holding things together. Angel slept nearby on a couch, curled into herself, Victor's oversized jacket wrapped around her like armor. For the first time since the forest, her breathing was even. Victor stood watch at the doorway. Jacobo observed everything from a distance. He had slept little. Sleep rarely came easily, but that night it had been impossible. The image of the oak tree lingered behind his eyes, overlaid with another tree from another life, another rope, another body swinging while a boy watched from the shadows. He pushed the memory away. "Status?" Jacobo asked quietly. Victor glanced at the monitors. "Stable. Doctors say he'll wake properly today." Jacobo nodded. "Good." Sophia noticed him then. She rose from her chair, careful not to disturb Alexis, and stepped into the hall. "You didn't sleep," she said. "It wasn't a question." "Neither did you," Jacobo replied. She crossed her arms, bracing herself. "Why are we still here?" "Because Castellano's men haven't forgotten you," Jacobo said calmly. "And because the one who ran is still breathing." Her jaw tightened. "They won't stop, will they?" "No." Sophia exhaled shakily. "Alexis, he has a problem." "I know," Jacobo said. She looked surprised. "You do?" "Debts don't appear out of thin air." Sophia's eyes dropped to the floor. "I try to stop him. Gambling started small. Then it didn't." Jacobo studied her. "And you stayed." "For Angel," she said immediately. "And because leaving is never as simple as people think." He didn't argue. That afternoon, Alexis woke fully. His eyes opened slowly, confusion flickering across his battered face. He winced as awareness returned, breath hitching. "Sophia," he croaked. She was at his side instantly. "I'm here. You're safe." Angel stirred at the sound of his voice and bolted upright. "Daddy." Alexis tried to sit up and failed. Angel climbed carefully onto the bed, hugging him gently around the chest, careful of his injuries. "I thought," his voice broke. "I thought I'd never see you again." Angel pressed her forehead to his. "I ran. I found help." His eyes met Jacobo's across the room. "Thank you," Alexis said hoarsely. Jacobo inclined his head slightly. "Your daughter is brave." Alexis swallowed. I put them in danger. Yes, Jacobo agreed. You did. Sophia stiffened, but Jacobo continued calmly. But you're alive. That matters. Alexis nodded weakly. Castellano is handled, Jacobo said. It wasn't entirely true yet, but it would be. The escaped man's name was Mitch. Victor returned that evening with fresh information and a faint smear of blood on his knuckles. Mitch is nervous, Victor said. Running. Knows he messed up. Where? Jacobo asked. Cabin off the old quarry road. Castellano's territory. Jacobo leaned back in his chair. We go tonight. Sophia overheard. No, she said sharply, stepping into the study. Don't. Jacobo turned. This isn't your concern. He hurt my husband, she shot back. But killing more men won't undo that. His eyes hardened. You think this ends if I do nothing? I think you've already saved us, she said. Don't lose that. Silence stretched between them. For the first time in years, Jacobo hesitated. Night fell like a blade. The warehouse stood quiet under a moonless sky, lights flickering weakly along rusted metal walls. Jacobo's men moved with precision, shadows slipping through broken doors and shattered windows. Castellano was inside. Gunfire echoed briefly, controlled, efficient. Jacobo confronted Castellano in his office, pistol pressed to his forehead. You sent men to hang Alexis Sanchez. Castellano sneered. He owed me. Jacobo's finger tightened on the trigger. And then Sophia's voice echoed in his memory. Don't become them. Jacobo lowered the gun slightly. You're finished, he said. Leave the city. Tonight. Castellano stared in disbelief. You're letting me go? Yes, Jacobo said coldly. Because death is too easy. Castellano fled. His empire collapsed within weeks. Life at the safe house softened. Alexis healed slowly, humbled by survival. He swore off gambling, attending meetings under Victor's watchful eye. Angel laughed again. Sophia and Jacobo talked late into the nights about loss, about survival, about choices made and paths taken. One night, Jacobo told her the truth. My father died hanging from a tree, he said quietly. I was 10. Sophia reached for his hand. Then you saved more than my husband. Their kiss was gentle at first, then inevitable. The night Jacobo spared Victor Castellano was the first night in years he didn't taste blood on his tongue when he closed his eyes. That disturbed him more than any gunfight ever had. The warehouse still smelled of cordite and oil when he walked out, boots crunching over shattered glass. Castellano had fled like a rat, eyes wide with disbelief, leaving behind an empire that would collapse by morning. Jacobo's men waited for the order to finish it properly. He didn't give it. Burn the books, Jacobo said. Strip the cash. Shut it down. Victor studied him carefully. You sure? Jacobo looked toward the dark city skyline. I am. The men obeyed without question, but whispers followed. Jacobo Ramon didn't forgive debts. He collected them in blood. That had been his law for decades. Until an 8-year-old girl ran out of the fog. Back at the safe house, Sophia was awake. She sat at the kitchen island, hair pulled into a loose knot, hands wrapped around a mug that had long gone cold. When she heard Jacobo's footsteps, she looked up instantly. You're back, she said. Yes. Her eyes searched his face. Is it over? For you, he said. Yes. She exhaled, shoulders sagging with relief. Thank you. Jacobo watched her closely. You knew I wouldn't kill him. I hoped, she corrected. I prayed. He said nothing. Sophia stood and approached him slowly. You could have. Yes. But you didn't. Jacobo met her gaze. Because if I had, I would have been standing under that tree again. Sophia reached out and rested her hand over his chest, right where his heart beat slow and heavy. You broke the cycle. The words sank deep. Alexis' recovery was slow, humbling, and painful. The rope injuries left nerve damage that took weeks to ease. Bruises faded from purple to yellow, then disappeared entirely, but the memory never did. He woke from nightmares more than once, gasping for air, hands clawing at his wrists until Sophia calmed him. "I did this to us," he said one night, voice hollow. Sophia didn't disagree. She simply took his hand. "Then spend the rest of your life fixing it." Alexis did. Under Jacobo's insistence, he entered counseling, gambling meetings, accountability. The process stripped him bare, forcing him to confront not just his addiction, but the shame beneath it. Angel watched everything with solemn eyes far older than 8 years should have been. She clung to Jacobo in ways that surprised him, sitting beside him during meals, tugging his sleeve to show him drawings, falling asleep against his shoulder during late movie nights. He never encouraged it, but he never stopped it either. One evening, she asked him quietly, "Are you scary?" Jacobo paused. "To some people." She nodded thoughtfully. "You're not scary to me." Something twisted in his chest. The escaped man, Mitch, didn't get far. Victor found him 2 weeks later, hiding in a rundown motel 2 cities over, shaking and drunk. Mitch begged when he was dragged back, sobbing and swearing he'd disappear forever. Jacobo listened silently. "Castellano's gone," Mitch cried. "I didn't know the girl would." Jacobo shot him. One clean bullet. Some debts were still paid in blood. Castellano's fall sent ripples through the underworld. Territory shifted. Power realigned. Jacobo used the chaos to do something no one expected. He legitimized. Businesses were laundered into clean fronts. Violence dropped sharply. Rivals hesitated, unsure whether mercy had made him weak or more dangerous than ever. They soon learned the answer. Sophia and Jacobo grew closer in the quiet moments. Late-night conversations stretched into dawn. They spoke about childhoods shaped by loss, about the things they would do differently if given the chance. Jacobo told her about the orphanage, about hunger, about learning early that fear was a currency. "You became what you had to," Sophia said. "And now," he asked. She smiled faintly. "Now you get to choose." The choice terrified him. Their first kiss happened without ceremony. No music. No grand confession. Just 2 wounded people standing too close for too long. It was gentle, careful,
Real.
Angel saw them once, hand in hand, and grinned. "I knew it," she said smugly. Spring arrived quietly, softening the estate grounds with green and color. Alexis was discharged from the medical wing at last, walking slowly but unassisted. The family remained at the safe house, not as captives, but as guests. As family. Jacobo made it official one morning, sliding documents across the table. "A house," he said. "Not here. Somewhere safe. Yours." Sophia stared.
Why?
"Because I don't save people halfway." Tears filled her eyes. The wedding was small. No press. No spectacle.
Just those who mattered.
Victor stood beside Jacobo. Angel scattered flower petals with serious dedication. Alexis watched from the front row, pride and humility warring on his face. When Sophia walked toward Jacobo, sunlight catching in her dark hair, something inside him finally loosened. This was the life he'd never believed he deserved. "I do," he said without hesitation.
So, did she?
Their son was born a year later. They named him Victor. Jacobo held the baby awkwardly at first, terrified of breaking something so perfect. Angel hovered nearby, announcing proudly to anyone who listened that she was the best big sister in the world. Alexis cried openly. Sophia laughed more than she ever had. Jacobo learned peace slowly, cautiously, as though it might disappear if he trusted it too much. But it stayed. Years later, Jacobo drove past the forest road once. Fog rolled low, just like that morning. He stopped the car, stepping out briefly, listening to the silence. No screams. No running feet. Just trees. He returned to the car, to his family, and drove on. The forest kept its secrets. But one day, it had given something back.